Well, hello everyone. Been a long time, but it's good to be back with all of you and back in your company again. Welcome once again to the Coach's Corner with Hanno Trollip. This is me, Manny Thangadurai, and we've got a special treat for you right now. I mean, I wouldn't call this so much of a treat because there isn't that much in terms of live action, but there will, of course, be some talk about the games that have been played, and also we could possibly try to provide some ball-by-ball coverage of some later matches later on in the tournament, certainly from the final stages of matches, which will be played, without any interruptions for, transferring to other matches and so forth. So, without further ado, we are going to begin this program by introducing to you the topic of our show today. It is a preview of the second round of the Australian Open taking place in Melbourne, Australia, and of course, a review of the first round action that has already taken place. Now, I enjoy tennis myself. I love watching it. I used to play quite a bit, and the Australian Open, obviously, given the time difference, is not a tournament which I've necessarily given too much attention. But of course, me living where I am, the coverage would technically be a little bit easier. Although if play begins in the early morning in Australia, it'll be quite late at night here in India, so I'll still be asleep. And of course, with matches going on until late in the evening in Australia, that also works out to be a reasonable time for me, and it would normally be reasonable if I weren't busy at work. And of course, having enjoyed covering the Cricket World Cup in the 2020 format, which of course took place in Australia in various other cities other than Melbourne, it's good to go back down under to cover this. And I do apologise for that. I wouldn't want to, mock that accent. I've got some really good Aussie friends, of course, lovely people, fair dinkum, calling a spade, and so forth. Shout out, of course, to the Aussie Goon. I know tennis isn't really his cup of tea. He's more into football and boxing and some really other rough and tumble sports, but good to obviously be in this company, and I hope to be on another stream with him again soon. But anyway, one of the biggest issues with playing this particular tournament is always that around about this time of year, it does tend to get quite hot because December and January might be winter in the northern hemisphere, but in the southern hemisphere, particularly in Australia and in New Zealand, it does get quite hot, too darn hot, in fact. And with temperatures over the years having gone into the 40 degrees Celsius range, it has affected a few players. And we're going to talk about some topics over here related to this tournament. The first topic, of course, being that these first 2 days of the tournament have seen quite a few delays to play, and quite a few matches have actually not even been played due to the issues of, the delays in play from, heat and rain in question. And we are actually going to talk a little bit about the talk about this one right now. Yeah, this is basically talking about how the heat and rain has played havoc with play on the outdoor courts in the tournament. So here, play on the outside courts at the Australian Open was interrupted by extreme heat and then rain on the second day in Melbourne. That was today, on Tuesday. And with temperatures going above 35 degrees Celsius, matches had to be stopped at 14:15 or 2:15 in the afternoon local time. It was after a 3-hour break that they resumed. Several matches were completed, but rain further held up play in the evening. So when you have extreme heat and rain, it is not a nice combination, believe you me. And basically, it was the outdoor courts that saw the scheduling affected, while the indoor courts, like the Margaret Court Arena and the John Cain Arena, were allowed to continue. The organizers have introduced something called a heat stress scale, taking into account the strength of the sun, the air temperature in the shade, relative humidity, and wind speed. And when it reached its highest level of 5, that was when play had to be stopped. And it had only come into effect when the scale hit 4, which meant that singles players could take a 10-minute break during the match and have a shower or use cooling rooms. Of course, doubles play has yet to get underway in the tournament, but singles matches have been affected with many first-round games having to be completed. Of course, one of the games saw Britain's Dan Evans involved. His was delayed by the heat. He was up 2-1 against his Argentinian opponent, Facundo Bañez. he used an ice pack on his head during changeovers and returned to the court later on to register a 4-6-4-4-6-6-4-6-4 win. So he will be one of four Brits who will be playing in the second round for both the men's and women's sections. Another Brit, Jack Draper, actually, I'm going to focus on him. He was affected by cramp in one of his matches, and he ended up losing sadly to Rafael Nadal, and we will focus a little bit more on that. And so 17 of Tuesday's scheduled matches were either unfinished or didn't start, which means that there will potentially be a packed schedule on Wednesday, but more rain could very well be forecast. Now, of course, if you watch the Wimbledon championships, you will know that rain and rescheduling of games is pretty much par for the course at that time of year. And until not too long ago, all of the courts were basically uncovered and didn't really have a roof. I believe they've introduced a roof for centre court, and since then it has contributed to play going ahead in that particular court. But the outdoor courts and scheduling have been affected, of course. There was even an occasion, I believe it was in 2001, when the Wimbledon final had to be played on a Monday, and that saw a memorable story where the 125th ranked wildcard Goran Ivanisevic made it through to the final, defeating Britain's Tim Henman in the semi-finals in the process and winning against Patrick Rafter in probably one of the biggest feel-good stories that tournament has ever seen. And of course, that was the only Grand Slam tournament that the stilt from Split would go on to win. One of the more colorful characters on the tour, famous for his booming left-handed serve with that rather herky, jerky motion that he had. Unorthodox, but very effective, consistently clocking over 200 kilometers an hour. And so, of course, when it comes to scheduling, it looks as though play could very well continue on a Sunday. And of course, Sunday for the Wimbledon title would normally be the People's Day when play wouldn't be conducted. But with scheduling being a problem, we have seen that happening, and it could very well be that Sunday we'll see some action taking place. My biggest hope, of course, is that the matches that are meant to be completed by the end of the first week will be completed. And this is basically what you will see on the screen. Talking about the heat policy, the heat stress index, matches in progress will be suspended at completion of the even number of games in that set or completion of the tiebreak. So that's pretty much how it works for that. And it's very unfortunate in many ways that heat will be a bit of a problem and will cause some matches to be postponed or delayed. But the health and safety of the players is always extremely important, and that is pretty much how it has worked. And of course, we talk about health and safety of the players. This does segue into the issue of players having withdrawn, and of course, the players who have withdrawn would have lent a great deal to the tournament itself, but sadly, these players have had to withdraw, and so some other lucky players would take their place. So basically what happens is that here we focus on the men's singles tournament. The seeded players are in fact here, as mentioned, but we have had a few withdrawals. Actually, none of these seeds have withdrawn, but there have been some upsets. I mean, here, one player who's withdrawn is the Australian Nick Kyrgios, who was a Wimbledon runner-up and, of course, was the defending men's doubles champion along with his Aussie partner. But sadly, with his withdrawal, his partner's had to play with someone else, and it's definitely a huge kick in the teeth because he was, of course, hoping to launch a strong challenge to win his home country Grand Slam, if you will. And so certainly his fans would have missed out on that. But of course, there is a return for Novak Djokovic. And of course, Rafael Nadal is still very much in the running at his age. Special mention, of course, for British number one Cameron Norrie, who continues his particular rise. And we have someone here named Sebastian Korda. I wonder if he is... Yep, the son of the former Czech tennis player and '98 Australian Open champion Petr Korda, Sebi Korda, representing America, will be playing. 6'5", right-handed, unlike his father, who of course was left-handed. Now, going to the list of withdrawn players, I already mentioned that Kyrgios had to withdraw, but other withdrawals include the world number one, Carlos Alcaraz, who had to withdraw due to injury and was replaced by a lucky loser. Marin Cilic, another one, 17th ranked in the world, had to be replaced by the lucky loser Juan Pablo Varillas, who ended up losing his first round match, and we will talk a little bit more about that. Kyrgios and the 53rd ranked Belgian David Goffin was replaced by another lucky loser. And Gael Monfils, another notable one who had to be replaced by Nuno Borges from Portugal. Vasek Pospisil, a member of the Canadian Davis Cup winning team, coming into the tournament, replacing Kamil Majrak from the Czech Republic. And the 101st ranked Zhang Ziyan, replacing Riley Opelka from the US. So basically, with these withdrawals, some players who just couldn't make the cut due to their ranking ended up, coming in and replacing them. And of course, we had the lucky losers who tried to get into the qualifying. I mean, who won the qualifying tournament, tried to win, but just couldn't, but ended up being considered, being put on standby, if you will, due to the nature of their performances. Now we've got the women's singles. Notable withdrawals here include Simona Halep, who was supposed to be in the tournament, but has been suspended pending a drugs test, of course. Naomi Osaka, who recently has become pregnant and is, of course, ranked number 42 in the world, had to be replaced, along with the 13th ranked Paula Badosa, who had to withdraw due to injury. She was seeded 11th for the tournament. And these are some of the other withdrawals, including Australian Ayla Tomljanovic. And great news for the Brits in that Harriet Dart was able to find her way into the main draw, replacing Wang Qiang from China. And again, we have the seeded players for the women. Polish Iga Swiatek and Tunisian Ons Jabeur are, of course, the top two seeds and the top two players in the world, followed by Jessica Pegula and Caroline Garcia from the US and France, respectively. Coco Gauff, of course, is in that lineup as the 7th seed, along with Madison Keys. Some other lower-ranked players include former Wimbledon champion Petra Kvitova, who is seeded 15th, and of course Victoria Azarenka, the two-time former Aussie Open champion, who is seeded 24th, along with another veteran and former Grand Slam finalist, Karolina Pliskova from the Czech Republic. And another main thing that we will sort of get into here is the fact that when you see these vacant flag areas, and we're going to be coming to that in the in this next one here, we see another headline over here about how Russian and Belarusian flags have been banned for players and fans. That means fans will not be allowed to wave these flags in the courts, and also players from these countries will not be allowed to play under these particular flags in question. Now, there was some controversy with Wimbledon banning players from these two countries from competing in the tournament, given the outrage over Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. The ATP and the WTA responded by stripping the Wimbledon tournament of its ranking points. Now, obviously, not wanting to cause that much of a controversy, have that punishment, it was decided that those flags would not be waved, and certainly. The question of human rights and controversy. Certainly, this is in many ways the right decision, in my opinion. And I'm sure people might want to, try and compare this with the banning of the pride flags being waved during the World Cup in Qatar, which to me was a question of, trying to protect human rights, only for Qatar to deem it otherwise. But at least here, it seems quite clear that the authorities and the organizers have taken the right decision in this regard. Any comments in the chat? Oh yeah, thanks for joining in. You still remember the Osaka Serena final. And listen, if you want to come in at any time, just send me a message and I will have you on and we can talk a little bit about that. That would be wonderful. It would be good to see you. And but anyway, we will go back to this, and I will in fact share another article for this from the BBC Sport website, I think, or has that been for some reason it's been deleted in a way, but I can try and bring that article back. Yep, I will in fact share this particular article with you right now. Yep, this is the headline. Australian Open has banned the flags from the tournament. Russian and Belarusian flags have been banned after a courtside incident, in fact. Uh, as long as disruption hadn't been caused, they were permitted to bring the flags, but the organizers reversed that decision earlier today after fans displayed a Russian flag during a match between Katerina Bandel from the Ukraine and Kamila Rakhimova from Russia. And the ban has now been put into immediate effect. We will continue to work with the players and fans to ensure the best possible environment to enjoy the tennis. And Ukrainian fans have, in fact, called police and security to the first round match on Monday, claiming that Russian supporters were taunting Bandel. Completely justified, in my opinion, with concerns of safety, the ongoing war. And the Russian fans were claiming that they weren't being obnoxious, they were just supporting their players with no ridiculing or disrespect. But the Ukraine ambassador to Australia had saw it otherwise and um, wanted to see Tennis Australia take action. And this continues a trend of Russian and Belarusian athletes not being able to play under their country's flags in several sports since the invasion of the Ukraine began in February of last year. And players from the two countries, in fact, will be competing under a neutral white flag instead. And I did mention that they were banned from playing at Wimbledon altogether. So the organisers of that tournament were fined, and the tournament was stripped of its ranking points by the ATP and the WTA. And so this is basically how it has in fact proven. And so one more point to talk about before we get to a review of the first round is, of course, the return of the Null, Novak Djokovic, who has 9 singles titles in Australia. And obviously, his expulsion from last year's tournament was not without a great deal of controversy, given his opposition to the coronavirus vaccine and his unwillingness to follow COVID protocols. There is always going to be a part of me, on a personal level, believing that any sportsman who refuses to comply with coronavirus and COVID protocols should, in fact, be expelled, because you've got to make sure that you follow the rules and not allow your personal convictions to get in the way of ensuring the safety of others. When you protect others, you protect yourself, and when you protect yourself, you protect everyone around you, and that's the cyclic effect. And with Djokovic, in my opinion, there is no denying his talent. With all due respect to the likes of Roger Federer, who is, of course, now retired, and Rafa Nadal, the defending champion, who will be defending his tournament, um, you know, Djokovic himself has won every single Grand Slam at least twice, while Rafa Nadal has only won the US Open once in his career, if I'm not wrong. And so I will just confirm that by taking a look at Nadal's career statistics. So when you take a look at being a master on all surfaces, actually I stand corrected. He has won 2 Australian Open titles and 2 Wimbledon titles, in addition to his 4 US Open titles and his 14 French Open titles. So I mean, quite literally, he has 22 Grand Slam singles titles, compared to 21 for Djokovic. But Djokovic, to me, is the person who always seems who in my opinion has the much better all-round game. Whereas with Nadal, you know, there is no denying that Nadal is one of the greats. But when you take a look at his, when I take a look at his all-round play, for instance, he's not very much of a hefty server. I'm not too sure he volleys. I don't think he volleys very well, in fact. And when it comes to being able to win at Wimbledon, it's really only down to his fighting abilities more than anything else. But Djokovic, for me, is the type of person who really is the only one who can stop himself from being one of the all-time greats. I always say that attitude determines your altitude, and he has been embroiled in more than a few controversies throughout his career. So this is, of course, just one of them. If he's able to make sure that he plays to his strengths and make sure that he avoids controversy, he will, in fact, surpass both Nadal and Federer as being the greatest player of all time, with his mastery on all surfaces not being in doubt at all. Seamlessly, he's got the game which is perfect for all surfaces, unlike Nadal, who seems to me to depend a lot more on brute, pugnaciousness, if you will. And really, with Nadal's injury record not being his best friend, and Djokovic being much younger, Djokovic really is the only person who can stop himself from getting more and more Grand Slam titles and finishing as the greatest of all time. Obviously, his return has been welcomed in some cases, and he has been delighted to be back. And it will remain to be seen whether he makes history by winning his 10th Australian Open title this year. We will see what happens in this case. Any more comments? Clearly, Mr. Trollope won't be able to join us, but don't worry. I'm glad you're still watching this. I really appreciate you being here. And now we're going to go straight into the review of the first round. And obviously, Nadal and Djokovic were in action. We're sort of going to take a look at the play of the thing. Yeah, so we are going to focus quite a little bit on the results right now, starting with the men's singles. So I'm just going to, share the screen. Yeah, so here we have action from the first day. From the men's draw, we saw Daniil Medvedev and Stefanos Tsitsipas, who were through on the first day, with the Russian Medvedev, who, of course, is playing without his country's flag. The two-time runner-up reaching the second round with a straight sets win, very straightforward over Marcos Giron. 0-1 and 2, 3 games lost, 3 sets won. And he, of course, was the runner-up last year to Nadal, so he'll be hoping to go one better. Third seed, Tsitsipas also advancing on the opening day's play, losing just 3 games against, obviously that was Medvedev. And Tsitsipas, in fact, is a 3-time semi-finalist. He was able to beat Quentin Halys from France in a slightly tougher but still fairly straightforward 3-set win. The third set coming in the tie-break. And of course, the third set was a bit of a cliffhanger for Tsitsipas, but he was able to come out of that situation. And he will, of course, face Australia's Rinky Hijikata, who will be representing the Aussies. And Medvedev's next game will be against John Millman. We will find out. Wrong one. And Millman is also going to be representing Australia, which is quite nice. So both of these players will be coming up against Aussies in the next round. And some other highlights include Zhang Juncheng from China becoming the first male Chinese player to win a main draw singles match. The qualifier beating Oscar Otte. And the American 16th seed Francis Tiafoe will be playing Juncheng in the next round. He beat Germany's Daniel Altmaier 6-3, 6-3, 6-7, 7-6. Straightforward first 2 sets, but then the third and fourth were a little bit, tougher. And you can sort of see here that with no clothing restrictions, the players in Australia do like to experiment with certain attires. I know Andre Agassi did during his pump, if you will. A notable loss, of course, in the first round was former champion Stan Snas Wawrinka from Switzerland. He's unseeded this time around, and he fell 6-7, 6-3, 1-6, 7-6, 6-4 in a tough five-setter to Slovak Alex Molcan. And the 10th seed, Herbert Hurkacz from Poland, cruising past Pedro Martinez in straight sets. And the 6th seed from Canada, Felix Auger-Aliassime, overcoming a poor set to beat Pospisil 1-6, 7-6, 7-6, 6-3. So a very tough match there between the two Canadian Davis Cup teammates. And this is, of course, action in the men's draw from the first day. As far as the second day is concerned, well, this is from 3 hours ago. British interest, of course, maintained by the unseeded Andy Murray, who held off the 13th seed Italian Matteo Berrettini in a 5-set thriller in the first round. 6-3, 6-3, 4-6, 6-7, 7-6 in a titanic 5th set, which of course sees the first player to either get to 10 points or get a 4-point lead in that. And he, of course, was returning to the tour after hip surgery in 2019. He thought that would end his career. He even saved a match point at 5-4 in the decider, but was able to pull through. And of course, I had mentioned Dan Evans, who won his match after that extreme heat delay. And with Evans and Murray winning, Cameron Norrie was able to win on Monday along with Emma Raducanu, and we'll talk about Raducanu in a minute. And we'll continue to speak about Andy Murray, but again, let's also take a look at how well Cameron Norrie did. The 11th seed, of course, he was able to win against Luca van Assche, the wild card. A very straightforward 7-6, 6-0, 6-3 win. Tough first set, but then the French wildcard faded away, and he will be facing another Frenchman, Constant Lestienne, in the second round. But back, of course, to this day's play. It was the 66th ranked Murray's first success over a top 20 opponent of the Grand Slam. Took the first set 6-1. I mean, actually, in the first 10 final set tiebreak, he raced 6-1 ahead, and eventually his forehand, which took the net cord and left his opponent stranded, that was enough to enable him to win. And he will either play Italian veteran Fabio Fognini or Thanasi Kokkinakis in the second round. Kokkinakis, of course, was Kyrgios's partner when they won the doubles tournament last year, and sadly, Kokkinakis will be without his fellow Aussie. Not too sure if he will play in the doubles. He might need to find a replacement as soon as possible. So we will find out again how Murray did. And yes, this match between Kokkinakis and Fognini still has to be played. It might be completed. For some reason, it's been completed, but it hasn't been mentioned here. Wikipedia, do better. But Kokkinakis actually has been delayed, rather. So Kokkinakis is well ahead. 2 sets and 4-2 up. He should be expected to complete this win in the early hours of Wednesday and secure his spot against Andy Murray. So, a Nash's clash in the Aussie Open. Who'd have thought it? And of course, it'll remain to be seen whether Murray will be able to play on Thursday, given the huge exertion that he had. He will, of course, take a look at things and see how well he feels. He's been working to give himself the chance to perform in games like this, and it paid off tonight. Quite lucky with the net cord, but the tennis he played in between was exceptionally good. And as for Dan Evans, he will play French veteran Jeremy Chardy. And Obviously, the return of cooler conditions at 5 p.m. local time were enough to enable Evans to win. So with this metal hip, of course, it's obviously it'll remain to be seen how far Murray will go, the former world number one and of course Grand Slam winner, who has never won in Australia, will look to try and do as well as he can. I'm not too sure he will be able to go as far, but we will certainly see. And so this is action from the men's draw. Now we can take a look at the women's draw to see how, if there have been any. One more match which we have to consider as well is the fate of another Brit, Jackie Draper, who was up against top seed and defending champion Rafael Nadal. He actually gave a terrific account for himself, winning the second set 2-6, but succumbing to cramping issues and ending up losing the last two sets 6-4 and 6-1. He struggled with physical issues in his career and couldn't even move. And by his own admission, he is a work in progress, troubled in many ways by cramping all over his body, and putting that down to being undercooked after a disrupted pre-season. It was the legs, and then towards the end started feeling it with my ab. When that happens, it's almost game over because it locks you up. Playing professional tennis at this level is very grueling, so for a young player like myself, it'll take a lot of time to get it right. These are all valuable learning experiences for me, and especially playing against someone like Rafa. Left it all out there, tried my best, competed and proud of how I played. At times, felt I was in a good place. So basically, just some more work for Draper to do. Nadal is, of course, the top seed in absence of world number one, Carlos Alcaraz. And shot selection proving key. So a difficult match for Rafa Nadal, but he was still able to pull through in the end. And we're going to take a look at some action from the women and see how well they did. We had world number one, Iga Swiatek, opening with a straight set win. Three-time major winner, winning 6-4, 7-5 against German Jule Niemeyer in straight sets at Melbourne Park. And the Polish 21-year-old will play Camila Osoro in round two. Also victories for third seed Jessica Pegula, sixth seed Maria Sakkari, and seventh seed Coco Gauff, who will come up against Britain's Emma Raducanu after she was able to win her Titanic first round match. Pegula will face Alexandra Sasnovich next after her 7-5, 6-2 win over Czech qualifier Brenda Furvitova. And Sakkari progressing with a win over China's Yue Yuan, going on to face Russian qualifier Diana Schneider. And of course, we will talk about Raducanu's 6-3, 6-2 win over Tamara Korpach. And there are only two former champions in the women's draw. So the two-time winner Azarenka also seeded in this tournament. Her last triumph came 10 years ago in Melbourne, in fact, beating 2020 winner Sofia Kenin of the United States. Last year's runner-up Danielle Collins needed 3 sets to defeat Anna Kalinskaya. Collins is, of course, seeded 13th. Wimbledon champion 22nd seed Elena Rybakina saying that she wasn't able to get the benefit Grand Slam champions normally get after being scheduled on an outside court for her first round match. I don't really care, just want to compete, want to win. No matter which court I play on, it's good to be here. Rybakina missed out on a chance to break into the world's top 10 when she defeated Ons Jabeur in the Wimbledon final. And of course, the only reason why she wasn't able to get into the world's top 10 was because of the stripping of the ranking points by the ATP and WTA. Petra Kvitova, 2019 finalist, also seeded, winning against Alison van Uytvanck. And Barbara Krejcikova beating Sarah Balek 6-3, 6-1. 2019 US Open champion Bianca Andreescu from Canada beating the 25th seed Mary Buskova. 6-2, 6-4. And the French Open champion from Latvia, Yelena Ostapenko, beating Yastremska 6-4, 6-2. So there is a great deal of depth in the women's side of the draw. And we're going to focus, of course, with British interest on, Raducanu and Norrie. The British number one, of course, winning 6-3, 6-2 against Tamara Korpach. And, of course, the 11th seed Norrie, having already spoken about that, progressing from the first round only for the second time in 5 attempts with his success over Luca Van Assche. Raducanu, in fact, had rolled her ankle in Auckland 18 days ago. And for her to overcome that and come through was basically a wonderful fillip for her in many ways. Now, I mentioned Harriet Dart. She was the other representative in the women's singles. She lost 7-5, 6-1 to Gilles Teichmann from Switzerland, the 32nd seed. And, of course, although Raducanu had a fairly comfortable start, she will, of course, be facing Coco Gauff in the next round. Basically, everything that Raducanu was able to do was controlled last week, and to test it out in a real match, it felt good, getting it over the line. Poor quality start, little with unforced errors, but Raducanu was able to come through in the end. Raducanu, of course, is the 2021 US Open winner as a qualifier, and currently working under Andy Murray's former fitness coach, Jez Green, working hard in pre-season on building her body to withstand the rigors of the WTA Tour. So obviously the accident which affected her in Auckland was a bitter pill to swallow, but in many ways she was able to recover from that and move forward. Now, I want to make sure that I get the results from elsewhere in the women's draw. And I will, in fact, be focusing now on Ons Jabeur. Second seed on the second day, overcoming a second set wobble to beat Tamara Zidansek and reach the second round of the Australian Open. Jabeur cutting a frustrated figure in the victory over the Slovenian, losing the second set 4-6, but bidding her for her first Grand Slam title after her runner-up finishes at Wimbledon and the US Open in the previous year. Wins also for seeds Garcia, Sabalenka, and Pliskova on the second day of play. Jabeur has never gone beyond the quarterfinals of Melbourne, but among the favourites for the title. Fourth seed Garcia cruising into the second round with a 6-3, 6-0 win over Catherine Sebov from Canada, the qualifier, and will face another Canadian in the US Open runner-up Leylah Fernandez after her 7-5, 6-2 win over Alize Cornet. Sabalenka of Belarus, the fifth seed, winning 6-1, 6-4 over Martinkova to set up a tie with Shelby Rogers from America, and Pliskova beating Wang Ziyu from China 6-1, 6-3. And 12th seed, of course, from 12th seed Bencic winning as well, and Elise Mertens also doing a pretty good job over there. Coming back from a set down to beat 2020 finalist Gabrielle Muguruza, also a former Grand Slam champion herself, 3-6, 7-6, 6-1. So as I said, a great deal of depth in the women's game in many ways. And I also have to focus as well for our South African friend, Mr. Trollope, on a certain Mr. Harris, Lloyd Harris from South Africa. I'll make sure I get that. Yep. So basically here, the 7th seed Lorenzo Musetti from Italy was knocked out by South Africa's Lloyd Harris. And Harris, of course, has been active on the tour for quite some time. He's A 6-month layoff has seen him sort of fall down in the rankings to 186, but he was able to win his match in a titanic 5-set battle, winning the first 2 sets easily enough, but struggling in the third and fourth before overcoming his opponent in the 5th-set tiebreaker. And the 25-year-old has been battling back to fitness after undergoing surgery on his right wrist. Another in the latest in the line of South African fine tennis players, especially on the men's side. More recent fans will remember Kevin Anderson. Of course, for me, I remember John De Jager, Grant Stafford, Wayne Ferreira was also a leading player. Kevin Curran also from back in the day. And last few months on the sidelines, making the victory all the more satisfying for him, really. A question of the family, everyone working so hard to get back here. Feels amazing to be back playing, enjoying the crowd, enjoying the tennis, had a blast. Harris, of course, had a career high ranking of 31 before his own injury troubles and talked about how the stalling of his career was quite tough, accepting it mentally and physically, being in a lot of pain, playing in pain, and the layoff had to happen, but after the surgery, he felt a bit better, and he was able to learn and reflect a great deal. And now he will face Hungarian Martin Fucsovics, who is ranked 78th in the world. He also needed 5 sets to get past Federico Coria of Argentina in his first round encounter. So, obviously, wrist surgery is a real problem. I know Andre Agassi had that early in his career, and you always have a fear as a tennis player that that could be the end of you. But thankfully, Harris was able to recover from all of that and, just take it forward. Now, of course, going back to the main headlights, what we can possibly see. Yeah, we already covered the women's first round as well. Sorry for not sharing the ticker there. But there will, of course, be a preview right now to the second round and what we can possibly expect. Hashim Niaz is in the chat. Big up, Hannah. Long time no see. Good to see you all. And so, yeah, good to see you too, Hashim, and hope to see you again sometime soon. So, of course, taking a look to day 3, what we can expect. Day 3 should technically be the beginning of the third round, but there are some of the second round, but there are some first round matches, of course, which have been delayed and which still have to be completed, including the match between Kokkinakis and Fognini, which will decide who will play Andy Murray in the next round. But headline clashes, of course, include Emma Raducanu facing Coco Gauff, two young players and wonderkins from the women's side, and of course. It's basically the world number 7 Gauff up against the 2021 US Open champion Raducanu, 18 years old against 20 years old. That'll be the headline clash on the evening session from the Rod Laver Arena. Cameron Norrie, of course, will take on Lestienne from France after defeating Van Asch. Iga Swiatek will open play on Rod Laver Arena against Camila Osorio from Colombia, and defending champion men's top seed Rafael Nadal will face American Mackenzie McDonald later on in the day. So these are basically the matches we have for you right now. The obviously the seeded clashes will be very key. Auger Aliassime will be certainly eager to try to do as well as he can for himself against Alex Molchan. And of course, Tsitsipas against Hijikata from Australia. That will certainly be a match which will generate a lot of interest with the third seed up against the home favorite. And of course, Sakkari and Schneider. These, of course, will be the key matches on day 3. And as I've mentioned, there will be some games which will have to be completed from the first round in order to take things forward. So basically what we have here is, again, more and more... like most of the first round matches have already been done, which means that only second round matches will, of course, be left. And The second round matches obviously are going to be quite key. It will be interesting to see if the winners from the first round will be able to make it through the second round, whether or not the heat and the rain will play roles in this particular tournament and at this stage of the competition. And of course, many of these Grand Slam titles where um, weather will be a factor have seen their share of early exits in the early rounds of the competition. And it will, of course, remain to be seen whether or not the conditioning of those players will be a factor, and whether or not they will have a role to play. And of course, we will provide you some analysis and some updates of the early matches. And as the tournament progresses, once we get into the final stages, we could potentially provide you ball by ball coverage of select matches, which could be done over here on the Coach's Corner. Certainly the finals, if we can. And I certainly hope that you will join us, and we were looking forward possibly to having some more discussions with other tennis fans concerning this particular tournament as the tournament goes on. But I want to thank you all for joining in. And this was sort of a last minute thing, which Hanno asked me to do. And I'm really grateful that I was able to do it for him. And I'll hope to obviously make more contributions again for this particular tournament. But until then, do please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell button for notifications. Do please follow this channel. Um, it's terrific to be able to work with him, and I enjoy doing whatever I can for this channel in many ways. It's terrific to cover different sports, not just football. I've covered cricket and now tennis, which is really something I enjoy a great deal, and I'll hope to do a lot more for this channel in the coming days ahead. I want to thank all of you for joining in once again. Big up to everyone in the chat who's joined in. Actually, it's really only been 2 people, but this is really only the start of it, and I hope it will continue. And yeah, so this is basically very much it. But thanks once again. I will hope to catch you all again soon. But for now, from the Coach's Corner, this is Manny Thangadurai signing off for now. Make sure once again you subscribe, like this video, subscribe to the channel, click for notifications, as I've said, and keep yourselves informed of any upcoming sports coverage on this particular channel, which will really be worth your while. And for now, I am out. Take care of yourselves, everyone.